philosophy, and he's also been compiling a lot of academic work that relates to monetary reform. And Govert's been to lots of AMI conferences in the past, and he's been a great supporter for Nick Ignatz in his in their protests outside the Chicago Fed, which we should have mentioned to our friend from the Fed as well. And as we're sort of running a bit late, I'll just briefly mention that Govert is also now working with the Alliance for Just Money and helping them with compiling academic sources and references. And so he's going to run through a bit of what he's been doing. So please give a warm welcome to Govert Schuller.
Let me find my bearings here.
Jamie.
I need just to
Jamie.
go to new tab.
He needs help there.
You're supposed to be the one that's helping.
He wants, huh?
You're supposed to be the one that's helping.
Well, you can do it if you want.
Where's my spelling? No, that's my website. All right, now we are where we are. Good afternoon. I'll keep it sweet and short, I hope. I've been with the AMI and with other monetary activists for a while. I'm running also a website. Louder?
No, just point it to your mouth.
Not too loud. And I started the bibliography. I was doing that already with other projects, and I thought, well, let's get a bibliography going on monetary reform. And then when, a couple of years ago, we started with the Alliance for Just Money, I offered them to take over the bibliography. And then I did some other things with it, and the results are now on our website, on the Alliance for Just Money website, under resources. Basically, I made 3 bibliographies. A short one, intermediate, and a big one. And I'll just talk quickly about all 3. And what I will bring out also is that the extensive bibliography is in 8 categories. So I'll talk about a little bit why and how that happened. The introductory bibliography. There we go. Sources for first orientation. It's quite short. You'll recognize a lot of items, and if you don't, I invite you to go there and see for yourself. For example, we have a TED presentation by a monetary reformer, Ole Björk. He is a Danish monetary reformer. He's, I think, the head of the Danish sister organization of us. So he has a very nice 15-minute TED presentation. Our friend Nick is there, linking social justice to monetary reform. I'm his editor. He's a great writer, and then I, do all kinds of cleaning up of references and stuff like that. And he was actually so nice to say that I was the co-author of Linking Social Justice to Monetary Reform. And that was a little pamphlet we used 4 or 5 years ago when we went to the Fed of Chicago, when we did a little protestation, and talked even with Fed employees who were astonished about what we were saying. Anyway, that's another story. One of the latest additions is the Mark Pash with Virginia Hammond book, How We Pay for a Better World. I think you have, Steve, you have some copies there, and you have a copy. I don't know if you've talked about that project and that book yet, but that's going full steam. The criteria that I used here is just, it has to be short, relatively short. So for example, here, I got the truth about banks. I don't know if you know about this article by Kumhoff, but it was written for the IMF magazine, and it's very short, it's very introductory, it's not as, complex as their papers. It has to be accessible, short, and also online. So any of these items here, they're also all online. And I've put them in here such that, for example, now presenting the American Monetary Reform Manual, that's the 32-pager by AMI. 16 pages, I think, are an introduction. Very well written, really good. It is online. So for every of these entries, I also created a little blurb saying, what you can expect for content, and also a little bit about the writer himself. So this is the introductory bibliography, and that can grow. If you know items that are short, online, and very accessible, let me know, and we can add them. Then, let's go back to the resources here. This was an interesting project. And I can just read that. It's an intermediary weighted bibliography of best studies in monetary theory and reform. And it's based on a group of experts that I gave the instruction, give me, I got this whole bibliography, give me some feedback and give me a rating of the items. A rating, European rating, 1 to 10, 6 being sufficient, 7 being broadly sufficient, 8 being good, 9 being very good, 10 being excellent. So I got from Huber and Patricia Lana and some other people, got some feedback there, processed it, and what I found was actually that and I had to make the list a little smaller. There were 65 items, and then I split that into a top 15, and then the rest, the other 50. And that one, the top 15, they had the highest scores with the widest consensus. So it was not only one person giving it a 10, it was like, 3, 4, 5 persons giving it a 10 or a 9, something like that. So there was pretty big, nice consensus on that. And you probably will recognize some of them. Here, the first one, Paul Douglas, 1939, Program for Monetary Reform. Ben Dyson, Andrew Jackson, Fisher, Huber. These are all people that probably are familiar to you. Let me see if there's someone that might not be familiar to you. The guy at the bottom here, Zarlenga, I don't know. The Lost Sites of Money and the Mythology of Money. Anyway, so that's the top 50. This is really good material that if you want to, have citations, make your case, go to these resources, get something, a little quote out of the abstract or out of the paper itself. You can do a lot of, you can put a lot of oomph behind your discussion if you use these sources. And then the second tier, you probably also will, well, not maybe everybody. Ola Björk comes here. Tim DiMuzio and Richard Robbins. Those are 2 anthropologists who are favoring monetary reform. We had them as guests at the Alliance for Just Money coffee house recently. And Tim DiMuzio will be also a guest on the International Monetary Movement for Reform coffee house soon. They're great people, and they are academics that we're attracting. And get me a question later about academics, maybe from John. No, he's not here anymore. Anyway, so you probably will recognize, there's a lot of humor. Jeffrey Ingham, who knows about Jeffrey Ingham? Sociologist from UK. Books about money, papers about money, very enlightening about monetary reform, and also the history of money. Kumhoff, of course, Lena, Leotard, McLee, those are all people that are, how do I call it, regular suspects, Werner, etc., etc. So I think that the best oomph you can have is with the top 15. Now let's go to the extensive one and what's happening there. So that became such a big bibliography that I had to cut it into little pieces. I say this bibliography is meant for expert students and expositors of monetary theory and reform. It's meant to be reasonably exhaustive, but that's, take that with a grain of salt, because there's so much that once you start digging into it, it's really a lot. So in total, including basically all the items of the introductory bibliography are in the extensive one, and also all the items of the weighted bibliography are in the extensive one. And I think it's more than 500 items now, altogether. So cutting that up into smaller categories is helpful. So I have a to each H subcategorization. And the logic that I followed is the following. In category A, proposed legislations and organizational endorsements. So like the Chicago Teachers Union gave an endorsement of the NEED Act. So I got the text there, accessible online. But what I try to do is that in A, you'll have the most precise and the most well thought through formulation of monetary reform. It cannot get better, because this has to be very precise, because once it is in, you'll have 100 years of litigation about what means what. And there will be all kinds of challenges from bankers, lawyers, whatever. Category B is then the best academic stuff that's done, specifically about monetary reform. Here you find all the work by Richard Werner, Kumhoff, Leina, you name it. There's a lot there. Then I had to have also a section of studies critical of monetary reform. There's a lot of challenges. Some are good, some are spurious, but a lot comes from academia. And then there are, of course, then responses to these critics. So that's to get into the nitty-gritty, it can be very enlightening to see this back and forth. It gets a little technical, sometimes too technical, but it's still very, very informative, and it's very sharp sometimes. Then in category D, non-academic advocacy pamphlets, reports, briefings, and books. So here's a lot of stuff that many of us already have contributed to, papers or books or etc. Most of us are not academics in these fields, but we're proposing, we're promoting, and so that's that category. Category E is supporting studies addressing monetary issues. So there are studies about the Federal Reserve, about central banking, about money creation. They are not necessarily about monetary reform, but will be helpful to understand monetary reform and the mechanics and the background. Category F, journalistic articles addressing monetary reform, and that might be, stuff that's being written because of the initiative in Switzerland 4 or 5 years ago. A lot of articles, even in Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, etc. There's a lot of high quality journalism that has been spent on monetary reform. So we find a lot of stuff there. Category G is educational and promotional videos. That still is a little bit of a weaker part. I can have more there. For example, presentations at the AMI. If they're good and they're here or online accessible, I can add those to it. But for now, it's not that big. Then category H is other relevant background studies. And with that one, let me see how I said that. That started with Stefan Zerlenga's own appreciation of Georgetown University and history professor and whistleblower to a certain extent, Carol Quigley. He wrote a book, Tragedy and Hope, and Zerlenga wrote a review on it, very in-depth review, and that can be a starting point for a lot of other political and political science investigations of how government works, how the banking industry works, and you can get into, well, what was, for example, the think tanks, the whole problematic of think tanks, long-term policy planning think tanks, Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderbergers, the Trilateral Commission, you name it. That once you start with that stuff by Zerlenga, and he only not only did he did this review on Tragedy and Hope, he found out that Quigley had an unpublished manuscript. I think in the late 70s he found out, and he went after that manuscript and had it published by Books in Focus. So he was really, really, on top of this Quigley guy and what he did. And so this category H is a little bit as an homage to Zerlenga, but it's also way more because it gets into theories of globalization, which is very important to understand, trade and international banking, etc., etc. So it's kind of a mushroom that's growing. I will not open those items. It's all for you to figure out. Every 2 or 3 months, I'm doing a little update because I find more stuff. People send me stuff. So in the different categories. So I talked with the parity people, saying like, well, if there is stuff there that is relevant for monetary reform, let me know. And we can find within those categories something of a space there. As far as the weak parts of this bibliography, first of all, it is not as exhaustive because you can keep going actually. And I have 2 researchers that have so much material that I could not process it. Michael Hudson. His output is really, really big there, and he could fit in any of these categories. A lot of his stuff, imperialism, money, history, you name it. He is all over the map, and so I have not, let's say, sufficiently processed what he did. So if anybody can say, "Oh, I know Hudson stuff that should be there," let me know so I can do that on your say-so. The second person that also has a long list of publications that I did not sufficiently process is Steve Keen. Now in the UK, but I think he came from Australia originally. He's taking on the whole economics profession and academia, and I mean, there's a lot there. So again, if people are very attached to certain material of Keen, let me know, and we'll process him and get him into the bibliography. One of the things that is not very prominent here is the historical part. Basically, it goes back to the Chicago plan of the 1930s. There is some older stuff from Soddy, Mitchell-Innes, Knapp, Del Mar. Those are sources that are often used, but it's not exhaustive. So the intention is from about Chicago plan till now, it is pretty exhaustive, but not from before. Some of you were present very nicely when I gave, this is August last year, a presentation at the Alliance for Just Money based on Zarlenga's work. It was this, it was called, what was the name again? Talking about Borders, and it started with a map of the world. Europe kind of in the middle, no, United States in the middle, Europe, Asia, and as an entity, economic power entity, and how it controls the world, and what the history is of that. I did a presentation on that, and I'd like to do that here again. Because again, that started as an homage to Zarlenga's thinking, and it's a part that might not have yet developed sufficiently of what we've done. You know, I'm looking into it, and I'm seeing all kinds of research programs that are going on that feeds into that. And I just want to mention three so-called power elite studies. G. William Domhoff is like the big guy. He is in California. He wrote a book, The Powers That Be, or you know, Who Controls America, or Who Rules America. And he has been on this for more than 30 years. And his teacher was Mills, who wrote the little book, Power Elite. So that's a research program that feeds into here. You have world systems theory from sociology. Manuel Wallerstein is like the big guy there, which looks at the whole world, you know, in a systemic way, seeing, you know, there's a core of the rich countries, there's a semi-periphery of intermediary countries, and then you got really the poor countries that are being exploited to begin with. So that is a sociological research program that feeds into our problematic. And then back to Quigley again, he also contributed vitally to the, what I call the comparative civilizations research program. If I tell you some names, you might think, okay, that's that. One of the first ones to do that was the German, Oswald Spengler, you know, the end of the evening lamp or something. But saying, you know, civilizations have life cycles and there are certain dynamics, etc. That got then upgraded by Arnold Toynbee, a British philosopher of history. And Quigley came also into that act. So he has some books and papers about the dynamics and the logic of civilizations. The interesting thing is that world systems theory has now married with comparative civilizations as a research program. I'll just throw it out as that, but you know, I can do a presentation about that, and it gets really, really interesting. That's it. I invite you to go there. I have without category, no, with categories, but in one long page, I also have this on my own website, alpheus.org, which sometimes I find for, if you want to do searches, is a little easier than do searches on our website. But that's for, you know, the people who want to do, you know, want to have stuff at hand. And
is there a link on that website to your website? Somewhere around there?
No, there's a connection to my email, but not to. I mean, there's a connection from my website to this website.
But not the other
I might do that. So this is my website.
You could say you could do searches easier on your website.
Yes, because like, okay, so I got this. Right. This is my home homepage where I got the Alliance for Just Money under recent tidings. The Alliance for Just Money is now a registered 501c3 nonprofit, etc. I got the latest that I've been involved into the publishing. Nick talked about that, the Constitution as a just system of money, and a little, where is his? Yeah, this is the article about what's his name, Nathelson. Oh, you don't recognize your own. Well, that's another story.
It's at the top. I was looking at the bottom.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I contacted Nathelson to check if Nick's writing was correct, if he had anything to find that he would find, issue with. And he was very kind. He said, no, that's a very good rendition. So, Nick, very good. And so I tried him to, get him into our group. Are you maybe interested to do a presentation to our Alliance of blah, 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 because this is what we're doing. And no, not interested in. First of all, he said like, oh, I did this research so long ago. I don't, it's not in my mind anymore. At the same time, you could say to, no, he's got it right. Nick.
It's a little bit funny with Nathelson too, because we're using him for his arguments and everything, and we contacted him at the Federalist Society. He's a member of the Federalist Society, and has been for years, which some of us here may not be necessarily proponents of.
Right. Yeah. So I didn't push him, see, okay, what is your position on monetary reform? But he was not ready to engage. So this is my page on the, with all the categories. But it, it goes on and on and on and on. It's really, really long. So this is being updated, my own page and the one on the Alliance. If you find items on the Alliance page, there is also a little contact button, and then you'll get my email. And so if you have any suggestions, please do so. Is there anything else that I wanted to add to that? Oh, yes. So there are items that you cannot get online, of course. A lot of papers, but I'm still connected with the university, so I had access to download papers. So if there are papers you find and there is no link, contact me. Probably I have it on my computer. There are certain books, off the record, that are downloadable at a place called ZZ Books. ZZ
Easy books.
ZZ, double Z, Books.
ZZ.
Z, yes.
.com.
So if you want to, get your own library going, contact me. I got stuff on my computer, but ZZ Books is also a good source.
Yeah.
I remember from a meeting.
That's it.